I am Marion McGarry-Wolf, and I'm going to talk about something that the last group talked about a little bit, about segmentation. I'm talking about wine segmentation, wine market segmentation by age generations. The surveys, it's really focused on Western US. Most of my survey research is probably almost 80% is California. And we'll also talk about buyer behavior and then the impact of some of the issues with COVID. So first I'm going to talk about the background of the research. And then I'm going to talk about the alcoholic beverage purchasing behavior by generation, wine desirability ratings, which is what we use in positioning research to try to talk about our product, what people really care about, COVID impacts, oops, I'm sorry, I went too fast. Then, where do people get information, sources for wine, and then just a really quick conclusions. So, this research was based on research that we actually did get published, which is what we have to do as professors, get peer-reviewed journal publications so that we keep, and my co-authors are Mitchell J. Wolf, which is my husband, and Benoit Lacotte, who's the head of the wine and vit department. We wanted to look at differences in wine purchasing behavior and the desirability of attributes when making a purchase decision, and the information sources across the 4 wine-consuming generations. Okay, so we were going to look at these different generations. Gen Z, who are very new in the wine market, because remember, you have to be 21 to purchase alcohol, and Gen Z have a lot of people that are not in that age group. The millennials, Gen X, and baby boomers. Are there differences between these groups? But, so that was our plan. But just as we were going to launch our research, what happened? Oh my God, COVID-19, right? Total disruption of everything that was going on. We couldn't ignore it. You don't send a survey out and ignore the fact that there's a pandemic and you can't buy wine where you're used to buying wine. So therefore, we added some questions to our survey to see what the impact of COVID was on the wine purchasing by generation. So it was an online survey, and it was done April 29th, 2020 through May 7th, 2020. And we had 944 people, and like I said, most of them are California. And it was, you had to be a wine consumer to answer the survey, and you had to be over the age of 21, okay? This is just the detail. It's funny, I'm so used to like pointing at it. So what are the definitions of the different groups? Gen Z, and again, this is 2020. They were only just turning 21. So they were born 1997 to 1999. The millennials are 81 through 96. The Gen X are the 66 through 80. And then the baby boomers are 46 through 64. And some different organizations will change the date by a year or something, back and forth. So just so you know, this is what Pew uses. And we wanted to know, what do they buy? What are the price ranges? Where do they purchase? And then how they ordered for pickup or delivery. Since, again, these were questions that we sort of added in when we knew everything had changed, okay? So, what did you purchase? One of the things that we found is that wine drinkers consume a variety of alcoholic beverages. They're not just wine drinkers. You have competition from every other type of product. They buy beer, craft beer, spirits. Sparkling wine was purchased by over half of the drinkers from all generations. So that's also being shown in the data, the external data, that's something that's an opportunity for a wine if you don't have a sparkling wine now. Now, the good old hard seltzer was purchased by a majority of our newest consumers. I learned about that by teaching and my students telling me about it. I'm like, okay, well, Gen Z, also Gen Z and millennials both buy these hard seltzers. Now, Euromonitor is one of my data sources that I use all the time, and I make my students analyze it. And they reported that hard seltzers are among the hottest alcoholic beverages, and that was in 2020. So this is something that I think we all need to be concerned about. So sparkling product hard cider was purchased by approximately half of Gen Z. And again, these are Californians, and I want to say they might not be the same as the whole country. Craft spirits and craft beer were more likely purchased by millennials. And then and I told you this is a peer-reviewed journal article. I also put the cannabis-infused beverages. Actually, some of my former students have cannabis-infused beverages as their brands. And I wanted to know, what are people buying? Only a tiny, tiny, tiny amount. So these are the numbers. If you guys want, my email is mwolf@calpoly.edu. I'm on both agribusiness and wine and vit site. I can send you a PDF of the actual journal article in the Journal of Wine Business. So if you want to see these numbers, but I mean, it's really pretty incredible to see. What we do is, again, this is when I teach the boring numbers. The p-value is there a significant difference? And if it's got a double star, it's really significant between the different groups. So we did find a lot of differences between the different generations. And I think the one that really, really stands out, well, we know, I mean, guys, beer is our competitor across all, but look at how low the cannabis-infused beverages were. Okay, so that's sort of interesting to keep in mind right now. I don't know that it's something to worry about. I don't know that it's something that you want to jump into right now. But look at the Gen Z were the ones that were more likely to have purchased, okay? And the millennials. Now, this is really important to everyone, the price range. So we asked, what is the price range of most bottles purchased? And Gen Z purchased wines in the lower price ranges for home consumption. And most of Gen Z purchased wines that were under $15, okay? A quarter of Gen Z purchased most under 10. So over a third of Gen Z purchased almost all of their bottles between 10 and $14.99, okay? Now, what's the percent of bottles purchased that were under 15? These are across the different generations. So you can see Gen Z were really strong in the lowest price range, where Gen X, these are the people that are really, you know, they're not as much into the low price ranges. And the boomers, so that shows us something about if you want to try to attract the new consumers or keep older ones, what price ranges there are. Now also, millennials are more likely to purchase most bottles, 10 to $19.99. And Gen X and boomers were more likely to have purchased over 20 bucks. So if we want to look at the over $20, and that's what a lot of the local brands here are, you know, you want to be attracting the Gen X and the baby boomers. Those are the ones that purchase more in your price range. And this, again, is a table that shows you what everyone answered. Where did you purchase wine in the past year? Okay, as we know, most people have purchased in a physical location. And again, it was past year, if you noticed. It includes pre-pandemic. So most answered, I went to a store, bar, restaurant. And however, there were differences in generations by the other channels. So only 7%, and this is typical to what we found. I'm sorry, back in the day when we had the millennials as new wine consumers, everyone thought back in the day, because I do this generational stuff, this is one of my things I like to look at. Everyone thought, oh, the millennials will be the ones that are all ordering online. No, they're the new wine consumers. And we even did like interviews with them. They wanted to be in the store. So same deal here. The Zs are not as likely to be purchasing online, and it's also they're buying the smallest price, the lower prices. Only 13.5% of Gen Z ordered wine for pickup or delivery at home, while a third of the other generations said they did. So these are the numbers where you see we had separately pickup and we had delivery, and I was able to go into the data and collect another variable that said pickup or delivery. So that's why we have that other number, and we see that pickup or delivery, you know, a lot of people were into that. Okay, how do you typically order wine? It was something we were talking about on the before I started talking. using a website from a computer was the highest method for ordering wine for all generations. Using a website on a computer was more likely by baby boomers, and baby boomers are also use the telephone. So you might want to have that available for if you want to get the boomers in there. Using a website from a mobile device was the second highest method for all generations, and Gen Z was least likely to use a mobile app to order wine. And these are the numbers that how they decided to order wine for pickup or delivery, all right? All right, product positioning. This is one of my things that I love to do. It's a desirability ratings. So we ask people when purchasing and before we ever show them a concept or another product, the following is a list of features people look for when they purchasing wine. Please rate the desirability of each feature to you when you are buying. Okay, it's a 5-point scale. 5 is extremely desirable, 1 is not very desirable at all, 3, somewhat, okay? And what we do is we do the mean weightings and we see, well, what comes up top? Well, what we found out, all generations agreed that the very to extremely desirable attributes are good value for the money, a variety I like, and a high quality product. The somewhat to very desirable attributes were high wine ratings, a wine from a local producer, a wine produced sustainably, convenient to pick up, and a brand I know. Some of these things I found are switching over time. I was surprised, and you'll see the younger generations like the ratings. So ratings used to be lower, but now recently our current wine consumers are turned on a little bit by the wine ratings. So what did they really not care about? Donates profits to save endangered wildlife, donates profits to COVID relief efforts, and can be delivered to my home. Interesting, those are the lowest. They want your product to be a good value, the variety they like, you know, you need to communicate it's a high quality product. You do, somehow. Okay, so although the generations agreed on the general groupings, 9 of the 11 attributes, there were significant differences in the ratings. So segmentation by generation in terms of messaging does make sense. So boomers and X both rated high quality product as the top, okay? They also rated high quality products higher than Z and millennials, okay? Because all right, remember, I'm not going to tell you there's a difference if it's not statistically significant. Though, that's what I try to tell my students. You have to tell, if the number's different, it's not different unless you did a stat test, okay? So I'm telling you stuff that's statistically appropriate. Baby boomers and Gen X allocated a higher percentage of their products to the $20 and higher. So they are expecting a high quality product, okay? The younger drinking generations purchase lower priced. Their top attribute, was good value for the money, okay? So if you're trying to get those people into your brand, then maybe somehow that has to be communicated. So Gen Z and millennials are attracted to the message good value more than the other brands. So here are the numbers that follow up the words that I just showed you. So what kind of ratings do these get? They're 4s, so they're very desirable. These are all very desirable. Okay, remember 5 is extremely desirable. Now some of them rated it extremely desirable to have a mean rating of 4. Then high wine ratings was less desirable to Gen X than to Z and millennials. Convenient to pick up was more desirable, was similarly related by everyone. Okay. Brand I know is more desirable to boomers who've been drinking wine longer and so you need to communicate to them. Gen Z and millennials rated wine from a local producer higher, which is sort of interesting, huh? So the younger generations were more attracted to local. And if you look at produced sustainably, that was the same across all generations. And then finally, to these endangered species and saving people, the younger generations were more turned on, okay? So if you look at donates to save wildlife, Gen Z and millennials were attracted to that message, okay? Higher, it's 3, it's somewhat desirable. where the older generations were not as turned on. Donates to COVID relief, the Z like that. I actually added that to my survey because a student came to me and said, that's something that maybe aren't some wineries doing this. So yeah, I added that to the survey. A student brought it up, okay? And goes, delivery wasn't as important. Okay, increases, I'm gonna go through this really fast because I'm running out of time. We asked them what they increased, okay? And 14 to 18% of millennials X said they increased online purchasing during COVID. Smaller Z, which makes sense from everything else we said. Increases in consumption, Gen Z was more likely to have increased wine, beer, and and recreational cannabis. I added that in there, so check this out, okay? So, all right, pretty much almost everyone did say they increased their online ordering of wine. It's not huge amounts, but still, it's significant. Increased, remember, they might have been doing it before. Now, all of their consumption, alcohol beverage consumption sort of went up, but a quarter of Gen Z said they increased recreational cannabis. So again, I teach marketing, and what's your competition? Don't forget that's out there, okay? And then, what did you increase? After COVID, I expect to purchase at a physical location less often, okay? Well, most people disagreed. However, if you look at strongly agree, a third of your consumers across the generations said they're gonna purchase at a physical location less often. So I had my students analyze this, and they were all about, oh, this is fine because the 70% are gonna still, no. If I own a wine shop and I know that people are gonna stop. So you have to think about that. The other side of it was the question that I asked, I expect to continue to order wine for home delivery after COVID. Guess what? The numbers matched what they're gonna increase, the decrease in physical. So yeah, about a third of consumers expect to purchase at a physical location less often, and a similar percentage expect to continue to buy online, okay? So, online is extremely important. And I have a whole nother set of questions about how do you get information, and I'm running out of time, but I'll just tell you off the top, everyone uses friends and family, okay? But the other thing is physical locations. Physical locations, workers at restaurants, workers at bars, workers at retail. So that's something that you need to, be able to include in your marketing campaign. So now with that, again, if you want, email me and I will send you the PDF of this article so you can actually look at all those boring numbers that I made you sit through. And now, instead of numbers, yeah.